Well, I'm definitely going to be honorable with your time. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Legacy Speaks as we're doing another Therapy Thursday here on Instagram Live. And I'm so excited for my guest tonight, Miss Beverly Andre. The crazy thing is we went to USF together, like and just, being able to go into the field and just see another familiar face. So I think it's pretty dope. It's been a long time coming. It was way overdue. And so, Beverly, please let the people know who you are and the services that you provide at BeHeart Counseling.
First of all, I have to just say that even before, I never even knew that you were a therapist because, I was in school and all of that. But when I was in school, my sister-in-law got me my own. Wait, can you see this?
Yes! Love it.
So she got me my own sweater, and I was just like, I never knew you created it at all. And then when I was like, oh, she cool people,
yeah. Girl, Beverly, you gonna make me cry, girl.
Right, hands down, my favorite sweater. And so I think it's just so dope to come from the same alma mater and just to see like all the things that you're doing. So dope, so inspiring. Like have another sis in the field and someone I can be like, yeah, she got it, she killing it. So I just give you your roses because I just love your content. I love everything that you're doing. And I just go, just flourish. And I'll just be on the sidelines like, yes.
Girl, thank you. I greatly appreciate that. So the world is super small. But enough about me. Put the spotlight back on you. Tell us more about you and your services and what you provide, because you are in 3 different states and everything. So just go at it.
Okay, so I am a licensed marriage and family therapist that primarily specializes working with Black and Brown women and couples. I love y'all. Please come to me if you live in Florida, New Jersey, or New York. I know couples therapy gets a bad rap because you're obviously dealing with 2 other people, but I think because I'm a romantic at heart, that I just love, and that all the barriers to the love, I just want to help couples, go ahead and situate so they can get, back and flourish and do all the things. I had to note that I specialize in Black and Brown women and couples because we are scarce in the field. Like people always say, I can't find a Black therapist, right? And so we have awesome platforms like Therapy for Black Girls where it's like centered at all of the providers. But if you don't have, if you're not familiar with that platform, then you're just like, okay, where do I go for a therapist, right? And thinking about a couples therapist, a Black and Brown couples therapist, people who actually want to do the things with couples, we don't see people that overtly advertise that. So that's why when someone's saying, hey, Bev, like, what do you do? I work with Black and Brown women and couples. Now, I work with everybody else too, but I need my folks to recognize and understand that everything that I do with BeHeart Counseling is for you specifically. Other people can benefit, but it is tailored for you. So, yeah, so that's what I do.
I love it. I know oftentimes they tell us in our fields not to niche down, but I think it's so important to be able to specialize in something and to unapologetically pronounce that and say that. I work specifically with Black and Brown couples and women. And so let's dive into it, right? I think oftentimes we are trying to navigate what relationships look like, but the number one relationship that we find or that we struggle with is like intimacy with ourselves. Oftentimes when I am helping clients work through relationships, I go through the relationship onion where it's like, strangers on the outside, then you have like acquaintances, associates, then you have like friends and family, and then in the middle is just that level of intimacy, which is you. And so how do you help clients work on the relationship with themselves so that they can go on to create healthy relationships with their partner?
That's an awesome question. I always tell folks that like you're the umbrella, right? And everything else is a role. And it's you that filters down into that role. Jessica is my clinical mentor is on here, so I'm trying to ignore these comments because she's going to lead me astray. But essentially, like, we are umbrellas, right? And our roles is everything that's underneath us. In order for us to be our best versions in those relationships, we have to nurture that relationship with us because we are essentially the source. And so I think that people have some folks have history where prioritizing you is selfish, or it doesn't benefit the family or prioritize the family. So there's an aspect of shame that's associated with, well, what about me, right? And so there's a lot of rediscovering what it looks like to nurture our relationship with ourselves and being okay with that, working through the uncomfortable feelings that come with, well, a little bit of me is okay. A little bit of me is worth protecting, into all of me is worth protecting. All of me is worth loving in order for me to be the best mom, sister, partner, whatever other role that we have.
Yes, I love it. The word that you used was rediscovering, but I
Mm-hmm.
also want to partner that with redefining because, like you
Yes.
mentioned, there's so many different roles that we are either thrown into or that we automatically adopt and take on. And I'm just like, I love that approach. Another thing that you said too was just being worth protecting as
Right.
we are rediscovering all of those different components of ourselves and maybe even reintroducing ourselves to
Mm-hmm.
ourselves. It's just like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, like now that I have this information, what do I do with it next?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what moves do I make? What decisions do I make in relation to my relationships? And that's so key, especially when we're talking about decision making with relationships. What are some things that clients should be mindful of as they are entering into new relationships?
So entering new relationships, I think that the number one thing is figuring out, am I truly ready to share my energy with someone else? Do I
Mm-hmm.
have healthy energy? Right? Am I showing up as my best self? Everybody has things that they're working on, but am I prioritizing the work before I go and bring someone in? What is my intention in wanting to engage with this person, right? All of that is self-reflection questions that you really do need to ask yourself, because if you don't know yourself, how are you supposed to know somebody else? How are you supposed to
Mm-hmm.
get to know somebody else, right? You'll end up conforming and adapting in order to be the person that you think that that person needs. And you honestly do a disservice to a potential partner because you're not even allowing them the opportunity to engage with someone who is authentically them. So how do they know who they're even being in partnership with if you don't know who you are inside of the partnership, right? So I think understanding that if I can authentically show up in the fullness of myself, then that means that this person, if they do respond to me and they do like what they see, there's no, oh, you only like part of me, not all of me, right? And it
Yes.
is something to be said that, of course, you're not going to like every aspect of someone. People have their flaws. But when it comes to core values, when it comes to the things that matter, are we in sync? Do you agree with me? Do you respect my views? Right? Because if you don't have that foundation, then you're literally building like a shack. It's going to tumble eventually. When a good gust of wind comes, it's going to tumble because it wasn't built sturdy. It wasn't.
Yeah. Love it. Even when you were talking about foundation, I was thinking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I think a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
slept on this in like social psychology, but like in the middle are
Mm-hmm.
those psychological needs. So
Mm-hmm.
even with you dealing with the love and belonging, and then after
Mm-hmm.
that, those esteem needs, that's
Mm-hmm.
so important. And so trying to figure out, how do you show up? Do you respect yourself? How do you feel about yourself? When you're with yourself, do you have this sense of freedom? And are you
Mm-hmm.
willing to create space for another individual when it comes to your freedom? I think that's so, so important. And I love
Right.
the fact that you were talking about all of the things, just being authentically you. That just dives into tearing down the representative and being bold and courageous enough to be vulnerable to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, can you talk a little bit about navigating vulnerability? Because, especially for Black and Brown people, we're
Mm-hmm.
not trying to be vulnerable up front. We trying to play cat and mouse real quick. And so, how do you help people work through that?
I think even just the idea of cat and mouse is, I know people throw it around a little bit. Maybe it's a trauma response that I'm scared to give this aspect of me because out of fear that you'll hurt me, versus I understand where we are, and based off of where we are, you get to have this aspect of me, right? If we are talking, and oh, that's so college, but if we are dating, I understand that healthy boundaries looks like you get this amount of me in this dating space. Once we put a label and we're like, okay, well, let's be, partners, then as a partner, you get this much of me, this healthy boundary of me. And if we decide to become married, then you get this like it's a progression. Like how much of me is in this relationship is based off of title, is based off of what we have co-established this to be. Because a lot of times people have no boundaries and they give all of themselves up front to someone who did no work, who earned nothing, right? And it's like, well, you get burnt and you're like, oh, I can't give none of myself to this person because look what he, she, or they, look what they did. No. What about you? Why did you feel so comfortable giving all of yourself to somebody who didn't earn it? You have no secure foundation that let me work that back. Your whatever status you're currently in, it did not align with how you were showing up. So you have a misalignment and you're having these expectations that don't make sense to where you are. So if I just met you and we're dating in 6 months and I'm already talking about all of these things and talking about commitment levels and I'm not sure that you are there with me, we're out of sync and you don't understand how I'm all in and you're just, I'm still trying to gauge, like, do we go on a second date, right? Yeah. And so when it comes to what you were saying about creating that safe space, co-creating that space and vulnerability comes with authenticity, right? Are we able to say, hey, this is where we are and what are your expectations for this phase of our relationship, right? And a lot of times people are like, well, I don't want to put a name on it because I'm not sure. I don't want to da-da-da-da. Everything that you do in life, there is a label. There is some sense of this is what it is. And those expectations are rendered from however we label it. It's a fact of life. If you want to say, hey, this is an entanglement, then you know you guys get to talk about the expectations of an entanglement. If you're saying we're dating, okay, what does dating look like for you? Let's be curious about each other, right? And that's how you co-create safe spaces, by talking out the things, not making assumptions, not interpreting what someone is saying, but literally calling a spade and saying, hey, I'm showing up as me. This aspect of me, this is what I need. Are you able to align with that? If not, cool. You are you and I'm me. We just didn't fit. But the problem is not in us, but our interaction.
Yes. And even with that, just showcasing the importance of communication. And then also going back to your esteem needs, just making sure that you're confident enough to be able to effectively articulate your needs as well. Being confident, being comfortable, be able to like identify your boundaries, because we can say, set a boundary, but if you don't know what your boundaries look like, then how can you effectively communicate them?
Right. And that's exactly what we're talking about, like redefining what it is, redefining who you are and what you need. What do you need in order to be safe? If you are able to identify, these are the things that I need in order to feel safe in conversations, then you are able to hold people accountable, right? So say, hey, like we're talking and I really want to know where your head at is with all of this. And they give you a vague answer. You saying, hey, I would really appreciate a clear answer so I'm able to give you a response, right? And if that person can't meet that, then the onus is on you to figure out, okay, how do I want to respond to somebody not being able to meet my standards for how I want to engage, right?
Right.
Because you can't expect somebody else to keep you safe if you can't keep yourself safe.
Definitely, because that goes back to vulnerability, right? Oftentimes we don't want to have those uncomfortable conversations out of fear of rejection or the emotions that come on the
Mm-hmm.
other side of not being well received or feeling as though we're not well received.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Jess asked the question, how does one navigate sharing changing expectations?
Mm-hmm. Understanding that whoever you decide to be with long term, that you are constantly studying them. That learning is not just, oh, we made it to the altar and that was it. That we recognize that we are human and that our needs and our desires do, it is expected that it will change. So if you have this understanding that I expect you to change, I expect you to evolve, I expect you to possibly not like the thing that you liked when you was 25 and now that we're 40, then we're able to move different, because I'm not expecting you necessarily to be the same Joe Schmo I met in college. That is
Yes.
unfair. It is unfair. It doesn't allow you to have the freedom to grow, and not grow based off of my definition, grow in your capacity, grow how you need it, how it looks like for you, right? So if I'm your partner, I am responsible for saying, you know what, I need to make sure I'm in tune with you, right? So if we need a little bit more work, maybe we can go to therapy. If we need a tune-up, maybe we can go and talk to a therapist, right? Make sure that, you know, along the way that we are keeping us in sync. Because yes, people do get out of sync, but it's not an issue if you recognize it and then you get right back on track by doing the work, you know? Like, we can't
Yes.
sit up here and act like folks are going to be sad. That's boring. You don't want to be with the same person that you met way back when, right? It's exciting to evolve together. And you know what? Sometimes people have that fear of, you know, rejection, like you were saying. And, you know, you have to think about, okay, are these past traumas or triggers that's affecting how I am reserved in telling my partner I don't like this thing, right? If that is, and if you feel safe with your partner, talk about, you know what, like, I did feel a little bit of reservation talking to you about this, but I really want to know, like, what are your thoughts on X, Y, and Z? And I really want this to be a safe conversation, and this is what I need from you in order to remain engaged. So let
Yes.
them know why you feel reserved, so they're not like, what do you mean? Like, you can't talk to me? It has nothing to do with you. This is just me and my stuff that I'm trying to process and work through in order to connect with you. I'm just letting you know.
I think also too, when you're talking about how it can be boring being with the same person and creating space for allowing not only yourself but your partner to change as well, that totally eradicates the whole story time belief. Like, we get married and we live happily ever after. And
Ciao.
now it's just like happily ever after means we just gonna be together and be in love for the rest of our lives. And so
Right.
it's just like it really gets real when you start seeing, okay, a relationship creates space for us to grow. It creates space for those difficult conversations. It creates space for those growing pains. It creates space for role changes, especially when you add careers and children and issues with infertility or life happenings when your
Right.
parents are passing away and all of that stuff like that.
Right.
I think it's so important for us to not live in the fairy tale and going back to the whole redefining what love looks like, redefining what
Right.
self-love looks like, and redefining what shared love looks like as well.
Right. And then, you know, it's so easy to stick to a script because it removes accountability. It removes legwork. Oh, we live happily ever after. Yeah, that's how the story's supposed to go. But the truth is, the real behind the highlight reel is that no relationship, including the one that you have with yourself, will flourish without work. There is nothing that will grow without work. It just doesn't happen, you know? So if you choose to be passive, you won't have a real passive, boring, real mundane relationship. And then people are like, well, look at so and so relationship. What you mean? They doing the work. You want what it looks like, but you don't want to do what it takes to get there.
Yes, yes. And I think even then, because I help clients work with like life adjustments and
Mm-hmm.
transition. A lot of times I find that clients struggle with change because like that was their normalcy, that was their sense of foundation. And so I think the fear of creating that space for their partner to change, it rocks their boat so heavily because they haven't done the work themselves to change. And so it's
Mhm.
just like, especially in addictions as well, when we start bringing in family members, and even spouses into like family therapy and stuff like that, one of the biggest fears is I wonder if they're going to stay with me because they may not like the sober me. And I'm just like, wow, that's crazy.
Right.
And even with you being at LMFT, you seeing things from a family systems perspective and how
Mhm.
each family member has a role. And if
Mhm.
like somebody changes, that changes up the homeostasis. It really rocks the boat a bit. And so,
Right.
how do you help clients navigate that fear? Because sometimes they automatically think that if I change, then that leads to divorce, that leads to separation. I won't know who I am, those
Right.
things.
So normalizing that there are risks on both sides. Like, we live in a complementary world. It's not, oh, this is just going to happen, right? No, there's two sides to every coin. You
Yeah.
change, we have both positive and negative consequences. And so we have to be able to normalize that there are two types, not two types, but there are both positive and negative consequences that come with every choice, and being able to process that. You decide to do different than your family, there is a risk that your family may not want to mess with you anymore. Now let's go ahead and process, what does that mean for you, right? Because we can't talk about, oh, all the positive changes that can come about, and yeah, like they're gonna love you, and we don't know what's going to happen in life, and we still can't operate in assumptions, right? We still
Mhm.
can't say, oh, let's process both the negative and the positive, and one of these things are going to happen. We don't know. But it's the client having the opportunity and the space to be able to understand, what does this choice means for me? We have all these possibilities, but does choosing me outweigh the negative possibilities? Do the
Mhm.
positive possibilities, are they that more important for me? Because people do have the choice. Well, you know what? I can't do this change because I'm not ready to deal with the possible fallout and the risk, which is
Yeah.
fair, because you are the every client I tell them, you are the expert of your life. I cannot tell you how to live your life better than you. You have individual needs that you believe need to be met. The only thing I can do, no metaphor, because I know you're gonna say something, is hold a little mirror out. I'm gonna hold a little mirror out for you, and just, I'm just gonna reflect back what you're saying, and then we're gonna, co-create and find different meanings.
Yeah.
It is what it is. My job is not to tell you how to live your life. We can talk about all the things. These are all the possible choices you can make. What are the individual what can come from those choices? Now, what do you feel like is the best choice for you?
Yes.
Mhm.
Love it, love it, love it. Does anybody have any freaking additional questions? Let me go through. Yes, just asked, how does a couple co-establish expectations? We touched on that a bit. Oh man, Jess, you better go. You better hype us up in these comments, girl. Yes, love it. Oh my goodness. Absolutely love it. I know, speaking of relationships, I do want individuals to know, I know we've been talking about like a lot of romantic relationships, but when we are talking about relationships in general, I think it's important for us to highlight those interpersonal relationships. So not just
Mhm.
romantic relationships, but your co-working relationships, relationships with your homegirls, relationships
Mhm.
with your parents, all of that stuff, all of these
Mhm.
tips, because oftentimes people feel like, well, I'm not in a relationship, I'm not married, I'm single. It's
Mhm.
okay. You're always gonna run into some type of relationship that needs some fine tuning. And even
Very
if you're
true.
single, focus on the relationship with yourself so that you can
Mhm.
learn how to co-create space
Right.
for other individuals. Because Black women, we out here winning, and we
And you
gotta
know
learn how to
what?
be able to advocate for ourselves too. Go ahead,
And
Beverly.
and you know what? Just like people, not people, Black women, just understanding that the things that sometimes you may be looking for out of other relationships is the thing that you need most from yourself, that you need to give to yourself. Because, and no, actually, that's people, period. The things that we seek in other people is because we are running on fumes individually, right? And so if we learn that in order for me to have the capacity to extend myself in these other relationships, I need to be able to fuel self first. I need to be, and people say, oh, you can't pour from an empty cup. But what does that really look like, right? What does that look like? An empty cup. An empty cup is, I need personal time, but I'm still saying yes to every single thing because I feel uncomfortable with the guilty feelings that come up with me not being able to be there for my friend, instead of recognizing, you know what? I sometimes struggle with feeling like if I don't do this for my friend or my family members, that they won't love me anymore. So let me go ahead and let that person know, hey, I would really want to do this for you, but I really need to prioritize myself. So now I'm going to go ahead and exercise my vulnerability and let you know where I'm really coming from. It's not because I can't. It's just right now I have to prioritize self. And that once this is fueled back up, sis, I'm here for you. Mom, I'm here for you. Partner, I'm here for you. Versus resenting you for asking me this thing that is perfectly normal, but feeling like I can't say no because of my own stuff that I'm dealing with.
Definitely. Challenging that people-pleasing behavior and also finding the root to that particular behavior. Where did that start from? That is so important. And I know oftentimes, within the therapeutic space, we talk about, if an airplane is going down, make sure you're the one to put your mask on first before you try to save somebody else. That's so key. Make sure, and it goes back to worth, right? Understanding that in the addiction space, we say that we can't help an addict that's dead. Meaning that if you don't take care of yourself, if you don't focus on your own personal needs, if you don't put your meetings and recovery in check and top priority, then you are potentially on the road to relapse, unfortunately. And so making sure that you're putting these systems in place to make sure that you're keeping your sobriety and your commitment to recovery at the forefront.
Right. And even just tagging on that, let's take that a step further. What are the barriers to you believing that you can't take those steps to take care of yourself? Whether you have addiction, whether you're in a marriage. I think somebody I did another a podcast, and somebody was like, oh, are you guys going to touch on the submissive wife or whatever? And I said, well, no, we didn't. But even with that, if I have that preconceived notion that this is what it is to be a wife, a partner, or a husband, do those preconceived notions prevent me from being able to take care of myself before I can be that wife, that husband, that partner, whatever? So let's take it even further back than that. What do we believe about ourselves that allows us to give ourselves up at our expense? I can't take care of myself because it looks like what? I don't even think about prioritizing me because it may come off as what? I'm a people pleaser person because I can't, say no because I fear that they won't love me because I dealt with so-and-so not responding to me in a healthy way when I said I needed this. How many experiences do we have as people? I try to assert what I need and somebody responded to me in a negative way. So now I start believing if I try to prioritize me, someone's not going to hold space for me, versus recognizing that person don't even recognize what it looks like to be able to allow people to do what best fits them.
And I think that's so important to touch on, because even when we talk about vulnerabilities, making sure that we find ways to dive deeper into what insecurities are arresting us.
Woo!
Even when we're talking about a sense of freedom, right? Like, we're the ones that are holding ourselves back from our own personal growth. And I always tell my clients, like, we teach people how to treat us. And so, like, if we're modeling
Yes.
that behavior, if we are self-sacrificing, if we're constantly giving, if we're burning both candles at the end, what does it look like for them to just throw one more thing on top of your plate because they know that you're going to do it, because you're showing them that you're willing to do it?
Girl, you know what? Listen. Yeah.
Girl, come on. But speaking of taking care of ourselves, Beverly,
Y'all,
how do you take care of yourself as a clinician? Okay? Like,
listen, and you know what? It's so funny because people are like, oh, y'all therapists, y'all don't go. I literally went through this like with one of my mentees the other day. She literally, a big deal, and full transparent, asked me months ago to write a recommendation letter for her to get into medical school. And then she's like, you know what? I'm actually going to delay this. I'll contact you in a couple of months. She hit me up, 2 days ago? I sat on that message for a whole day because I knew I just not in the frame of mind to do it. There's a lot happening in life. And me as a whole therapist, recognizing you do not want to disappoint this person that you love. You do not want her thinking all these negative thoughts about you. And I processed it down for a whole 24 hours. And I messaged her back and I said, you know what? This is where I'm at. I'm going to be vulnerable with you. Because you deserve the truth. Honesty. You can never go wrong doing the right thing. My husband always says that. And you know what? I let her know. I said, you know what? I love you. I just can't. And it has nothing to do with you. I just can't. And she responded back to me, thank you so much for your honesty. I really appreciate that. And that for me, not to say it made me feel better, because I still feel the disappointment of not being able to do that, but the self-betrayal would have been worse. The feelings of self-betrayal would have been worse. And I knew that I wouldn't be presenting my best self writing that recommendation letter for her when I already feel at capacity.
Yeah.
So why give you crumbs when I can give you a whole cake?
You better feed the people. Okay. Love it. One last question, Beverly.
Yes.
I always ask this to every single clinician. What wisdom would you give to an individual who is looking to start their wellness journey? I think oftentimes we as people of color, we struggle with the stigmas associated with mental wellness or even seeking therapy. And, you know, oftentimes people don't even seek therapy to begin with, but like, what advice would you give to somebody who is looking to start their wellness journey?
My advice for people who want to start their wellness journey, because I think there's a lot of pros and cons, and I think people recognize that. But want to just reiterate, you can choose different. You don't have to continue living your life the way that you are living your life just because your mom lived it, your dad lived it, the people in your neighborhood lives it, just because everyone seems to be doing it. Because at the end of the day, if it works out for other people, if it looks good for other people, they're going to keep doing what they want to do. But if you know within yourself, what I'm doing, how I'm living is just, I just don't like this. You have the responsibility to change that. You have the choice to be able to change that. You know, your wellness is not dependent on somebody else telling you to go to therapy. You have to figure out, do I love myself enough to do the work to create the change that I want to do? Even if I'm uncomfortable, even if I'm scared, am I able to prioritize me and choose different? A lot of people don't even realize that they have the choice to do different. You don't have to speak that way. You don't have to think that way. You don't have to act that way if you don't like. And you don't have to sit with your thoughts by yourself in the late night hours or self-medicate because you can't deal with the life that you're living.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Y'all, I hope y'all enjoyed this audio, this video, all that jazz. Beverly, please let the people know where they can find you.
Beverley Andre _ and Beverly with an L-E-Y, because my mama was fancy, y'all. Beverley Andre _ on all social media platforms.
Yes, yes, y'all. Please make sure that you're connected. As always, I always put every single one of my interviews on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, the podcast. So all of those links will be included. Her link tree, her personal website will be included. So please make sure that you stay in touch. Okay. But once again, y'all, thank y'all so much for tuning in to another episode of Legacy Speaks. And I'm so grateful. Yes, of course.